I stared at the message on my phone. Property taxes are due. No hi. No hope you're well. Just that cold, curt sentence from my father, like I was his personal accountant. I sat in my apartment, stunned. For 8 years, I'd quietly covered the bills for our family's vacation house, the repairs, the insurance, the taxes, every single thing. I thought I was helping us keep a legacy alive. But then I found out the truth. My father had set up a trust fund worth nearly $700. No dollars. Not for the family, not for both of us, just for my sister, Natalie. The same sister who hasn't held a steady job in a decade. The same sister who once sold my grandmother's jewelry to buy designer handbags. That sister. And he never told me, not one word. It wasn't just about the money. It was the betrayal, the erasure, like I didn't exist. That night, I made a decision. I was done being the silent supporter, done playing the good daughter. They thought I wouldn't fight back, that I'd just keep paying and smiling. But what they didn't know was that I already had a plan, a calm, calculated plan. And by the end, I would be the one holding the pen that rewrote everything. Would you keep giving to people who don't even see you? I'm 41. I live in a modest but peaceful apartment in Boston, work in marketing for a mid-sized firm, and live a life that, on the outside, looks comfortably uneventful. But what most people don't know is that for the past 8 years, I've been quietly supporting my family's vacation home in Cape Cod. My father technically owns it, but I've been the one paying the bills, property taxes, maintenance, emergency repairs. You name it. My sister, Natalie, she hasn't chipped in a single dime. But let me back up a bit. I grew up in a family that looked picture perfect on the outside. 2 daughters, a stable father who ran a small accounting business, and a stay-at-home mother who passed away when I was in college. After her death, everything shifted. My father became more withdrawn. And somehow, Natalie, who was always the baby, started getting away with more and more. At first, it didn't bother me. I was the older one, the responsible one, the one who got straight A's, never missed curfew, and never asked for much. Natalie was the opposite. She was wild, impulsive, and could cry her way out of anything. I still remember being 12 years old, watching her spill grape juice all over the carpet. When my dad came into the room and asked what happened, she pointed at me without blinking, and he believed her. That moment never really left me. Natalie grew up chasing Instagram aesthetics. She dropped out of college, became an aspiring lifestyle blogger, and lived with our dad rent-free until she was 29. Meanwhile, I built my life alone, from the ground up. I didn't mind, not really, until the summer house became a battlefield. See, the Cape Cod property wasn't just a vacation house. It was a piece of our family's history. My grandfather built it with his own hands. It had this creaky old deck that overlooked the ocean, and a giant maple tree in the backyard where we used to hang a tire swing. After Mom died, that house became sacred to me. So when Dad mentioned one summer that the taxes had gotten too high and he was thinking of letting it go, I stepped in. "I'll cover it," I said, without hesitation. And I did, quietly, year after year, nearly $8. $1,000 annually in property taxes alone, not to mention the $3 we spent fixing the plumbing one winter and the roof patch after the storm in 2019. I kept a spreadsheet. I even paid for the water heater replacement when Natalie complained she couldn't take cold showers like a peasant. Dad always said thank you. Sometimes, Natalie, she once told me, "You're such a control freak. No one asked you to pay." But the truth? I paid because I believed in family, because I thought if I kept giving, they'd see me. Instead, they just got comfortable. Last Thanksgiving, something shifted. Natalie arrived late, carrying a Gucci bag and an attitude, and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Well, Once my trust kicks in, I'm buying my own beach house. No more sharing with the broke side of the family. I laughed. I thought it was just one of her tone-deaf jokes. But then Dad didn't laugh. He just looked down and changed the subject. That night, something nagged at me, a little voice in the back of my mind. I opened my laptop and started digging. I logged into the shared family financial portal, the one Dad used to share with me when I was helping him sort out taxes. And there it was, a line item labeled Natalie T. Reynolds Trust, with a balance of $684. $600, funded from the sale of Mom's old investments I never knew had been liquidated. My hands went cold. All this time, I thought we were working together to preserve something meaningful, but in reality, I was just the mule carrying the load while they planned their futures behind my back. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, I had made a quiet, firm decision. I was going to stop funding everything. No announcement, no drama, just silence. They wanted to act like I didn't matter? Fine. Let's see how the house runs without the invisible daughter holding it up. At first, I thought maybe I'd misunderstood what I saw. A trust fund for Natalie? That big? I kept refreshing the screen like it might change, like the numbers would rearrange themselves into something that made more sense. But there it was, crystal clear. $684 in a legally binding trust, structured to release in quarterly payments, all in Natalie's name. No mention of me, not a shared fund, not a family inheritance, just her. I called the bank the next morning, carefully, calmly. I said I was reviewing some old documents my father had shared with me in the past and asked if they could confirm the details of the trust. The woman on the phone was polite, but firm. I'm sorry, ma'am. That's a private financial account. I can't discuss the details unless your name is on it. And that was it. I sat at my kitchen table, coffee going cold, heart pounding in my ears. I was numb, hurt. But more than that, I felt humiliated. All these years, I thought I was the helper, the peacemaker, the glue. Turns out, I was just the backup plan. Or maybe not even that. Maybe I was just the wallet. Later that week, I went over to Dad's house. I told him I'd seen the trust account and asked, straight out, why is there a fund just for Natalie? He didn't even flinch, didn't blink. He just said, she's had a harder life than you. I stared at him. She's had a harder life? Dad nodded. Like it was the most obvious thing in the world. You're independent. You've always taken care of yourself. But Natalie, she's fragile. She needs help. Fragile. That word echoed in my head like a slap. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake him and say, what about what I need? But I didn't, because that's not who I am. Instead, I stood up and said quietly, I won't be paying for the vacation house anymore. He looked up, surprised. You're really going to punish your sister over money? Punish. That was the moment I realized something painful. To him, my boundaries were punishment, but Natalie's entitlement, that was just love. I left without another word. That night, Natalie posted a photo on Instagram. It was a throwback of the summer house, her in a bikini, standing on the deck I had paid to rebuild. Caption, nothing like family. Sunshine. And a house by the sea, grateful, blessed. I didn't comment. I didn't like the post. I just stared at it, remembering the invoice I'd paid for the deck staining. $2. $140. And the late nights I spent emailing contractors to keep that house running smoothly. Grateful. Blessed? She had no idea. 2 weeks later, my father sent a group text to both of us. AC's not working at the Cape. Can you get someone out there? I didn't reply. 3 days later, storm damage to the roof. Need help with estimates. Still no reply. Then, finally, property taxes are due. No greeting. No how are you? Just that. So I answered, I won't be covering anything further. Please consult the trust. No emotion, no explanation, just facts. Natalie called me 2 hours later, furious. What the hell? Claire, are you seriously just abandoning the house? You know Dad can't manage that stuff alone. I could hear the wind whipping through her Bluetooth. She was probably in the car, late to brunch or yoga or whatever lifestyle she was pretending to live that week. I said calmly, I supported the house for 8 years. Neither of you ever offered to help. Now you have your own trust. You'll figure it out. She huffed. It's not liquid yet. I paused. And whose fault is that? Silence. Then the click of her hanging up. That weekend, I got a certified letter from my dad. He was deeply disappointed in my attitude and accused me of creating division in the family. He said I was behaving irrationally, letting jealousy and pride get in the way of tradition. He even hinted, and this part made me laugh bitterly, that maybe it's time to discuss your access to the house going forward. Access to the house I paid for? That's when I decided to take things further. I contacted a lawyer, not to start a war, but to protect myself, to get a full record of everything I'd paid into the property, receipts, statements, emails. I documented it all, because if they wanted to cut me out, fine. But I was going to make sure they felt every dollar they took for granted. And I wasn't done yet. Not even close. July came. And so did the storm, both literal and emotional. The Cape Cod vacation house had always been the centerpiece of our family's summer. Every July 4th, we'd gather with grilled corn, ocean breezes, and carefully forced smiles. But this year, things were different, very different. I hadn't been back since the trust fund discovery, and this time, I had no intention of showing up, but I knew they would, because entitlement doesn't take a holiday. On the morning of July the 2nd, my phone buzzed with a string of texts from Natalie. Why is there no power at the house? Internet's down too. Is this you being petty? I tried calling the property manager. He said the account's been deactivated? Claire, what the hell? I sipped my coffee slowly and texted back, I canceled all services. The accounts were in my name. 10 minutes later, Dad called. I didn't pick up. Instead, I let the voicemail run out, then replayed it with morbid curiosity. Claire, this is absurd. You're being childish. You're putting everyone's weekend at risk. Call me back immediately. It struck me. He never once said thank you for the years I kept that house alive, but now that it was falling apart without me, now he was paying attention. That weekend, I stayed in Boston, I went hiking with friends, turned off my phone, and let them figure out their own mess. When I turned it back on Sunday night, there were 8 missed calls and 3 voicemails. Apparently, the roof had started leaking after a surprise thunderstorm. The contractor wouldn't come out because the previous client, me, had closed the work order account. There was no working AC, no hot water. The fridge had blown a fuse. And the worst part? Natalie had invited guests, Instagram guests. They left early. Disgusted. Natalie was mortified. Dad was livid. And I felt peace for the first time in years. But that peace didn't last long. The next week, I received an envelope by courier, hand-delivered to my office. It was from Dad's attorney. Inside, a proposed amendment to the house's property documents. He wanted me to officially remove myself from any future rights, claims, or ownership in the spirit of fairness and family unity. The letter said, I laughed out loud in my cubicle. Fairness? After using my finances for nearly a decade, now that I refused to play the game, I was the problem? But here's where it gets interesting. What Dad didn't know, or had conveniently forgotten, was that I had saved every bank transfer, invoice, and contractor receipt. Every dime I'd spent was documented and traceable. And because I'd contributed over 70% of the upkeep cost over 8 years, I had legal standing. I forwarded everything to my own attorney. We drafted a letter back, polite, but clear. Miss Reynolds is willing to relinquish future claims to the vacation home in exchange for reimbursement of her documented contributions. totaling $63, $700 plus interest. We gave them 2 weeks to respond. Natalie exploded online again, passive-aggressively posting things like, "Imagine trying to shake down your own family like it's Shark Tank greed get therapy." I didn't respond. I didn't have to, because 2 days later, I got an email from someone I never expected, Aunt Lillian, my mom's sister. She had seen Natalie's posts. She wanted to talk. We hadn't spoken in years, but she invited me to lunch over soup and sourdough. She said something that floored me. "Claire, that trust fund? That wasn't meant for Natalie?" I froze. She went on to explain that after my mom died, she had left a shared investment account for both of us, me and Natalie. She had it in writing. But somehow, Dad had funneled it all into a separate trust and only named Natalie as the beneficiary. "Your mom would never have wanted this," Aunt Lillian said. She believed in fairness, balance. My chest tightened. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about Mom's legacy, being rewritten without consent. That night, I called my lawyer again. We added another clause to the settlement proposal. If reimbursement is not granted, we will pursue a legal review of the trust's formation and distribution of inheritance assets. 2 days later, Dad called, not angry this time, tired. "Claire, can we talk face to face?" I agreed. We met at a coffee shop halfway between Boston and the Cape. He looked older than I remembered, worn. He didn't apologize, but he also didn't argue. He asked what I wanted. I told him, I want acknowledgement. I want my contribution recognized, and I want to make sure no one ever erases me from this family again, legally or emotionally. He sighed, then nodded. "I'll talk to the attorney." He said, "We'll work something out." Was it a real olive branch or just damage control? I didn't know yet, but I was no longer the silent daughter, no longer the invisible one funding everyone else's dreams. This time, I had a voice, and I was using it. 2 weeks after that meeting with my father, I got an unexpected call from my attorney. "Claire, you might want to come by the office. Something just came in." I took a long lunch that day and sat across from him while he opened a thick envelope, delivered by FedEx from my dad's legal team. Inside were 2 documents. The first was a formal agreement. They would reimburse me for 100% of the money I had spent on the house over the past 8 years, $63,700 plus for 5% interest. The second was even more interesting, a revised trust proposal. This time naming both me and Natalie as equal beneficiaries of the remaining family estate, including any future inheritance from the sale of the Cape Cod house. I stared at the papers for a long moment. "This is it?" I asked. My attorney nodded. "It's a complete reversal. They're surrendering. Quietly. No court, no drama." I felt the corner of my mouth lift. It wasn't just a financial win, it was a statement. They finally recognized my worth. But the twist, it wasn't just the trust fund or the house that was being renegotiated. It was my place in this family. They thought they could erase me, like I didn't matter. But now they were rewriting the will, in ink I handed them. Still, something didn't sit right. Why the sudden surrender? That night, I got my answer. Aunt Lillian called. "Claire, I think you should know something. I didn't just talk to you about the inheritance. I spoke to Dad's attorney, too." "What?" I blinked. I told them I was prepared to testify if it came to court, that I had letters from your mother and copies of the original documents she'd planned. My chest tightened with realization. They hadn't backed down because they grew a conscience. They backed down because they knew Aunt Lillian's documents could expose them in court, possibly for misappropriation of inheritance funds. They had tried to play smart, but someone in their own circle broke the silence. And suddenly, I saw it all clearly. My dad hadn't chosen to do the right thing. He had been cornered into it. I should have been furious. But honestly, I felt powerful for the first time in my life. I wasn't playing defense. I wasn't begging to be seen. I was strategizing, winning, quietly, legally, elegantly. And Natalie? Well, She called me a week later, so I guess congrats are in order, she muttered, voice thick with resentment. I didn't gloat, didn't rub it in. I just said, I hope you finally understand something. Nat, being the loudest or most spoiled doesn't make you the most important. It just makes you dependent. She hung up. A week later, Dad tried to arrange a family dinner. One last attempt to save face. I agreed. On one condition, we meet at my place. He hesitated but said yes. That night, we sat around my small dining table. It wasn't fancy. No view of the ocean, no inherited furniture, just clean plates, warm food, and truth in the air. And I said this, for years, I tried to earn my seat at this table by giving, sacrificing, staying quiet, but I finally realized I didn't have to prove my worth to anyone. I just had to stop letting people act like I had none. Dad looked down. Natalie rolled her eyes. But for once, neither of them interrupted me. This isn't revenge. I added, this is realignment, balance, respect. And that was the last dinner we had as a trio. I haven't heard from Natalie in months. Dad sends the occasional holiday card. And me? I sleep well. I invested the reimbursement money into a small property outside Bar Harbor. Maine, my own getaway, my own peace. No more secrets. No more trust funds built on betrayal. Just a quiet life I built, brick by brick. And justice. It didn't come with fireworks. It came in signed documents, bank transfers, and the quiet shifting of power back where it belonged. It's strange how the most profound shifts in your life don't always come with dramatic explosions. Sometimes they arrive quietly with a signature on a legal document, with a canceled check, or with the simple realization that you no longer owe anyone your silence. After everything, the trust fund, the years of invisible labor, the gaslighting, I didn't scream, I didn't throw plates. I simply stopped being the version of myself they were comfortable taking for granted. And the world didn't end. In fact, it began again. A few months after the settlement was finalized, I drove up to my new place in Bar Harbor. It's nothing flashy. A little 2-bedroom cabin tucked into the trees, with a wide front porch and an old rocking chair that creaks when the wind picks up. I bring a book, I bring wine, I bring peace. I no longer spend holidays chasing a seat at the family table. I make my own table. Sometimes friends join me. Sometimes it's just me and the ocean air. And for the first time in decades, that's enough. I look back now and wonder how long I would have kept giving, kept over-functioning, if I hadn't stumbled on that trust fund. How many more years I would have poured into a house that was never really mine, for a family that never truly saw me. And the truth is, that betrayal saved me. Because sometimes you need to be excluded to understand your worth. Sometimes the greatest gift your family can give you is showing you exactly where you don't belong, so you can finally discover where you do. And no, this isn't a fairy tale. My father never gave me a heartfelt apology. Natalie never changed. There was no group hug at the end of all this. But I didn't need that. I needed freedom, and I got it. Justice didn't look like revenge. It looked like boundaries. It looked like reimbursement. It looked like walking away with my dignity intact and my future finally in my hands. So, if you're listening to this and wondering whether it's time to stop being the responsible one, the helper, the invisible backbone of your family, let me say this clearly. You don't owe anyone your silence. You don't owe anyone your constant sacrifice just because they've gotten used to it. You are not selfish for choosing peace over performance. You are not wrong for saying no more. And no matter how long it takes, whether it's one conversation, one boundary, or one signed document at a time, you can reclaim your power. One quiet, brave decision at a time. If you've ever been the one keeping everything together while no one noticed. If you've ever been written out of your own family's story. If you've ever had to build your freedom from the ashes of betrayal, I see you and I want to hear your story. Share your experience in the comments. Have you ever been the Claire in your family? The one who gave everything and finally had to walk away? If this story resonated with you, hit that like button. It helps more people find stories that matter. Subscribe to Behind the Story for more real-life journeys of betrayal, redemption, and emotional justice. And if you want more content like this, check out the next video, because sometimes the best endings start with walking away.